Well, hey everybody, this is Don with the Vlog of Many Things. Thanks for tuning into our show tonight. With me is the illustrious,
Tom from
and
Tabletop
with
Tap
us,
Room.
I think everybody recognizes the name, Thyatus
Yep.
from Gaming Legend fame is with us tonight. Thyatus, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys?
We are good.
Good to be live with you.
Yeah, very good to be live with you. Why do we have Thyatus, a gamer, on our show talking about AI? Because to keep a long story short, Thyatus has graciously agreed to come on. Me and Thyatus has had a few conversations about this subject. He is someone who works in the AI. Scott Mulder says no audio on my end.
Uh-oh.
I have audio on my end.
I can hear you guys.
Hold on 1 second. Let me real quickly check one more person, and they will be able to tell me if we have an audio issue or what. We'll see if this is a widespread audio issue, or Scott, is it just your stuff on the fritz?
Check. Audio check.
Audio check, everybody. Well, we'll find out because other people start going, I can't hear it either, because we right now have about 47 people in the video right now watching us.
Wow.
So Thyatus works in general terms in a field that deals in AI, and I would qualify him as a semi-expert. We'll call it that. How about that? In AI, he knows his Franks and beans when it comes to Franks and beans. So, Thyatus, let's get this started right. Why don't you tell us in your own words, what is AI generally speaking? When it comes to the two types, there's generative and non-generative.
Yes. So is actually a series of algorithms and programming that is also combined with AI. And then you have different varying degrees of the complexity of AI from there. So in a nutshell, it's a series of algorithms and machine learning.
Okay.
So
now,
go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, so when you start to get into the more nitty gritty details of what is generative versus non-generative AI, is really what you're actually talking about is the job that the AI is applied to.
Okay.
So generative AI is, its purpose and goal is to basically make things, and then non-generative AI is there to do more of a like a specific task or job, like playing chess.
Okay. Now there's a term that a lot of people don't know what it is. It's called data corpus. And now data corpus, from what I understand, is data corpus is actually what kind of like, if you will, and again, I'm using Don's words here, okay? This is not technical, but kind of like the spider that goes out and grabs things and searches for things and does. Is that a right term or right analogy, or am I kind of off here?
I would argue that that it might be that at the beginning, because you're building a data corpus when you're, we'll say, scraping the internet for stuff, which I'm sure we'll get into here shortly. But data corpus really is just a term for whatever data set you're actually using for the basis of your machine learning.
All right. Gotcha. So to keep it more simpler, so basically data corpus would be something like whether I use PHP or CSS.
No. I would say it's more like your database.
Okay. Yeah. If I had read data corpus out of without much context, I would have just defaulted back to corpus means body, so it's the body of data.
It is the body of data. Yes, that is exactly what it is.
Whereas like a standard SQL database.
Yes.
As an example. Okay.
Yeah. In fact, so SQL, if it had machine learning attached to it, could even be considered AI.
Yes.
So, but so specifically a data corpus, it just literally means body of data. and that is what you use for your AI to learn from.
Gotcha. Now, no, I'm just saying, by all means, we interrupt. I mean, if you got a point to make, we definitely want to. This is going to be, I think, a really good information-packed hour here.
I can go on for hours on anything, so interrupt me.
No, you're fine. Now, I guess
he is a very knowledgeable guy. I can attest to that.
So let's just get into the nitty gritty of this. Now, we all have heard. I mean, let's face it. There's the line where there's fact and there's bullshit.
Yes.
Okay. And when it comes to AI, I think it is so mixed up with each other now. Nobody knows whether they're coming or going. Everybody knows somebody who's a freaking expert on the subject, online. And let's face it, confirmation bias using Google is worse than AI in what it does. I mean, with people. I mean, people have just...
Which is ironic because Google now uses AI in your search results.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
Let me interject a question where I think you're going, Don. What's some of the biggest BS out there about AI? Give us like two or three.
Yeah, what's the biggest lies out there, or the biggest misconceptions, maybe?
Yes. Well, so the biggest misconception I would say is that AI directly copies something and just creates a new copy of the exact same thing, regardless of what we're talking about content-wise. So that's not a very good way of actually explaining what AI actually does here. So if we just kind of look at the elephant in the room for a minute, like Stable Diffusion and image generative AI.
That's something that I'm going to talk a lot about tonight because it's the big elephant in the room right now.
And it's also the most controversial for a lot of reasons. But when it comes to like image creation through Stable Diffusion, what it actually does is it took an image that was probably copywritten and owned by someone else, right? And what it does is it destroys the image.
Okay.
So it goes through a Gaussian noise process where it literally
what is... I'm going to have to interrupt a couple times probably this because your level of understanding is far above most other people's, including mine here. So explain what do you mean Gaussian noise?
So basically it's a process, an algorithmic process where it goes through and it changes data, in this case pixels. It adds noise. Okay, it's like static.
Yeah.
To each pixel randomly.
Okay. Gotcha. So go ahead.
Oh yeah. So basically it goes through on every pixel. So say you have an image that is 512 pixels by 512 pixel resolution.
Yep.
And it can randomize that in about 800,000 different ways. And it saves the randomized pixelated box of noise.
Okay, so my question is this then. Okay, right now we all know that there is a big uproar about the use of AI in as a publisher, as an example.
Yeah.
You know, publishers are very pro AI and publishers are very anti AI. My friend Jim Wampler, in fact, as an artist, he actually made a no AI logo that a lot of people now are using.
That's fair.
So my question is this: as a publisher, and I'm going to have a couple different hats on today. I'm going to put my publisher hat on. As a publisher, I can understand the appeal of AI because, after all, I can save a lot of money by not hiring an artist.
Which effectively is the point of AI, is to reduce cost.
Yes. But also, as a publisher, I can still remember back, even though I've only been a publisher of games for 5 years going on now. Good God, it's been 5 years already. But I can remember back when people like Eric Lofgren and Dean Spencer said, "Hey, Don, you don't got to pay for this, buddy. Here's a few pieces of art. I'll help you out. You're just starting out." And I'm kind of conflicted because I look at those guys and I go, man, they were really there for me when I needed it. And yeah, I can save a lot of money by using AI, but because of so much crap attached to AI, is it really ethical for me to do that? So I guess what my end question for you is this. Do you believe there is a such thing as ethical AI, or do you believe that ethical AI is something that would be a positive in the industry sooner or later?
Yeah. So generally speaking, yeah, I do think there's a there you could categorize AI into two categories of ethical versus non-ethical.
Okay. And what are
Um,
the differences?
so it depends on how you went about getting your initial data set. So if you went through the process of properly acquiring permission for your copywritten material that you're going to end up using,
Hmm.
that would be an ethical way of gathering that data.
And that is what Google is claiming that they're doing right now.
Right. So when we start to get into the specific details about how, like, the Lion data set was created, which is what's with a big portion of Stable Diffusion and what it used for like Mid Journey and all these image generation programs.
Hmm.
Um, Google is claiming that according to like their terms of use,
Yeah.
that this would be considered fair use of that data set. Now,
Gotcha.
from a personal perspective, I might consider that unethical, but that is definitely something the courts are going to have to decide.
Okay. So
because there's very shaky legal ground there when it comes to like terms of use and what and the scale that we're actually talking about. So.
now, when I initially looked into AI, one of the things, bad echo again. All right, sorry guys.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if it's my microphone. Don, why don't you take over a minute? Let me see if I can sort this out.
Okay, so Thaddeus, so I guess kind of talking about a moment while Tom takes care of his audio. You know, we have ethical and we have unethical AI. Okay, you say the courts are going to kind of hash this out, but the problem, I guess, the question I have is this: is that when you look at the core of, and we'll look at AI today.
Yeah.
We know that places like Midjourney right now have a class action lawsuit because the whistleblower came out against them and said, hey, look, here was a list of people. And there were a lot of well-known artists on that list of saying, go grab their data.
Yep.
Now, my question is this. Let's say I run, Thaddeus and Don and Tom are running an AI company. And I say, Thaddeus, I want you to go out and grab a bunch of images because we're going to steal Dean Spencer's artwork. Sorry, Dean, if you're watching, you're the victim tonight. So how does that happen? I mean, I deal in databases every day. I do web programming. I know what databases are, but where I'm foggy on is how do I take an image of this,
sure,
and say, okay, AI, I want you to use this as the basis to make more of these. How does that happen?
Yeah.
What's the mechanics behind it? Because I don't get.
So every image, destroyed image that Stable Diffusion takes or creates, I should say, because it creates a new image out of the old one by destroying it and going through that noise addition process. And what
like
they
Gaussian,
go ahead.
It's like a Gaussian blur, using Gaussian blur inside of Photoshop.
Sure, but it's on like a whole other level. Like it literally destroys the image. But they tag it. So each of those images is tagged with some textual data too.
Okay.
And that textual data is then used to provide context based off of the prompt that is used by the user. So say we have Don's image number 1.
Okay.
And we go through the noise process. Then we tag it with specific descriptors of what that image could be.
Okay.
When you give it a name or tagging, and I'm speaking in very reduced layman's terms here, when you start tagging it with the specific names of Dawn Image 1, though, then you're going to run into some issues, because then that allows people to specifically look for through the prompt or something that fits Dawn's Image 1, as opposed to graphical bar interface, whatever,
Okay. Now,
so and that definitely is shady legal territory.
Yeah. Now, the big thing with me also with AI is I do a lot of pencil work.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of pencil art. I've been doing a lot of stuff for a game we're putting out called Zonk.
Okay.
Now, early on when I was working with David Floor on Atomic Age, his RPG, I did a book cover for him. Okay. And he ran that through a quote unquote AI detector, because BackerKit, when he went to put the crowdfunder up, they run AI detectors. BackerKit said, no, that's AI generated. And it was not AI generated. I mean, legitimately was not. So what are these AI generators? Because Tom will tell you a story too. Tom, I'll let you get to the cat story in a moment. Tom ran the same thing when he was just doing some testing. So, although I have my own opinion now of AI detectors, are AI detectors by and large accurate? And B, how do they make that decision?
Yeah. So I can't speak for all AI detection systems when it comes to images. You actually have slightly better success for text, to be honest, than you do.
That's pretty obvious too. Just read it.
Well, hold on. So I've come across many instances where you couldn't tell that it was written by AI.
Getting that good.
Yeah, and I can maybe explain a little more in that regard here shortly.
Yeah, go ahead, you're fine.
But when it comes to AI detection generators for images, my understanding is that the methodology that they're attempting is to look for like the specific house stylizations for certain systems like Midjourney. But the thing about style is it's easily replicated, oftentimes on accident. And honestly, most of those AI detection systems are probably not worth their salt. Please don't sue me if you guys are watching. But
no, but this is fully disclaimer. Don't worry about it, my friend.
But honestly, I've never seen them have better accuracy than 50-50.
Yeah, because Tom, talk about
flip a coin.
Yeah.
I had a photo of my cat and I ran it through an AI detector and it said like 80-something% likely it was AI.
Yeah.
But the problem is those type of things are creating havoc in the industry, because you have legitimate artists that are being called out for using AI when they're not using AI.
Yeah.
And then you have obvious, like Hasbro has been outed for using AI, because I don't know of any elves in classic D&D or even neoclassical newer D&D that has 7 fingers.
Right.
And that's the kind of weird stuff that AI, although it's getting better.
It is.
AI is, I mean, hell, now you can actually take an image. I mean, no, don't take this wrong, Tom. I could take an image of Tom and me and video make us kissing now.
Ooh.
That's the AI that they're doing now. And the funny thing is, it's really weirdly scary. Not that I did that, Tom, okay? I'm talking in generalities here, folks. But the point being is, I think very shortly, because just a few years ago, I didn't even hear about AI. And now it's just like everyday commonplace. What's going to happen 3 years from now with AI? I mean, are we gonna ever be at a point, do you think, where we don't need Tom Cruise and Blake Lively and people like that, because it'll just go ahead and make them?
Yeah. In fact, we're already getting closer to that point than you realize. There's entire AI systems that are currently in development specifically for the film industry. And when you have like a lot of the strikes, like we did this last year in Hollywood, and sometimes even back to back, I think we had 2 Hollywood strikes in the last few years that have really, set back a lot of these studios. They are looking for systems that could potentially replace humans. So,
well, what's really interesting here is like in the prop field. I used to work heavily in the prop 3D model prop field, and still to this day, like when you watch Star Wars, and there is a digitally rendered ship, by contract, there has to be a true physical model of that ship, at least one made. So
true.
Everything you see digitally rendered, there's a physical ship. And the reason why they did that is because they saw the writing on the wall that digital was very quickly going to do away with physical props and physical stuff. Flint, how you doing tonight, my friend?
Hey, Flint.
So I have a question then, since we're kind of talking legal here. Do you know what the state of the affairs are with any of the lawsuits, Getty Images, maybe any of the class actions that are going on concerning AI art?
Yeah. So I mean, when it comes to a lot of those lawsuits, I actually tuned out about 6+ months ago on purpose.
Okay. Well, then let me pivot with a different question. Yeah. In the beginning, because this was actually what I was going to ask earlier. In the beginning, when I started studying AI, I was hearing about, I think they were called overfixes, and it was where the
overfixed or oversampling, yeah,
where it really almost was like a copy of the original. And does that still happen a lot, or is that kind of going away?
So a lot of these Stable Diffusion AI groups that sit outside of Stable Diffusion, so like Midjourney, okay.
What is Stable Diffusion? What is it not? Why do you differentiate that so much?
So Stable Diffusion is a nonprofit organization,
gotcha,
that developed this method of image generation. You can actually go on to Stable Diffusion right now and use it for free.
Would you classify it as ethical AI?
Well, so again, that goes back to how they gathered the data. When it comes to Stable Diffusion, they were working with companies like Google. However, I would like to point out that there does seem to be a relationship with Google that may have existed prior as part of the creation of that group. So I don't have all the information on that, but Google is so big, sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing.
Yeah.
Probably on purpose. Not that I want to be on YouTube bashing Google.
It's called plausible deniability.
Plausible. Yeah. So what I was reading when I was reading about the overfixes was that there was a lot of for-profit groups and companies that were donating money to these nonprofits, and they seemed to be implying that there was a little bit of a quid, because it was an academic nonprofit doing this thing, which meant they were able to do things with collecting data that like a regular company could not. And so they had all this money, they were funded to do this, and then they made their thing available because we're nonprofit. But it was like there was a quid pro quo that do this and then make it available for us, and so we can have our hands off plausible deniability. And hey, we didn't do that.
They want to be able to not say we didn't touch that.
That way they got around having to operate by the proper rules as a for-profit company.
But that's kind of where. But that's where you're touching now. For lack, I think you termed it Butlerian jihad.
Yeah.
The philosophy around AI. I guess my thing is this, touching back to the publisher hat on versus non-publisher hat. I can see it both ways. And, I can understand the vehement dislike of AI, and I can see the vehement embracing of AI.
And really quick, for full disclosure,
you're good.
I both love and hate AI as well.
Same thing here.
So I have this love-hate relationship with it myself. I view it like a tool to be used for specific purposes.
Yeah.
And I don't use generative AI in my work, but I use, non-generative AI. I actually think that's probably the best use of it in reality is for the automation of various processes. But I think right now, as far as the legal framework, just in the United States, as an example, other countries' mileage may vary. But for our legal framework in the United States, I don't think we have very many ways of actually properly addressing the potential ethical issues here, because
we live in such a litigious society, and not only that, but because of lobby, having access to our politicians, because of the potential money-making aspect of AI, it's just a mess, a hot mess.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. There's so much money to be made in this process that, if you can set up a front company that's a nonprofit to basically use this data and then make that claim under fair use that this is used for effectively training and for nonprofit. And most judges will say, hey, this is a nonprofit situation. Fair use probably applies. And then suddenly all these other groups start to farm out around them.
Yeah, you look at X under Elon Musk. Didn't they just offer $94 billion to buy out that other? That was just yesterday. It broke. They offered $94 billion. It went to the other. What's the? I don't remember the company's name.
OpenAI.
OpenAI, which is like they're one of the big leaders in AI right now.
Yeah.
And my thing is though is in your opinion, Thaddeus, okay, first of all, would it be fair to say if I make a statement here, is this statement accurate? AI is here to stay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because if, and here's the thing too, is if we decide not to use it, like say as a society here in the United States, we decide not to use it, we ban it. Guess what? Everyone else in the world is going to use it. Someone else is going to be using it. And when it comes to the even non-generative AI, or even generative AI, depending on the circumstance, cyber criminals are going to use it, whether we want to use it or not, too. Yeah. So, just because you ban it, that doesn't actually mean that the people are going to actually follow that law. Whenever you ban anything, really, I mean, you're going to get a black market, basically. For better or for worse, depending on your perspective.
AI is being used here in the state of Maine to steal titles on property. Faking the person, and so there's actually a person behind that, but the image is the real owner. And so they're actually proposing a commission up in Augusta, all the stakeholders to look into this. But again, that's going to move so slow. I think what'll happen is they're going to get going, but it'll leapfrog.
Well,
Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4. Yeah, it'd be so far ahead.
Well, Scott Mulder says, he says, I was flattered that some people wanted to refilter my art, but had a serious problem when the person insisted that the hot garbage that generator came up with was human made. That gets under my skin. Well, and that I think is the issue here, because I see it also all the time on Facebook is, people go, I drew this.
Yeah.
And they forget to take the little Bing logo off the bottom left-hand corner, because they don't know that's what's really there. That's the Bing logo. It's not just a blurb,
Some sort of watermark, yeah.
So the problem that I have with it is every publisher to their own, every creator to their own, okay? But if you're going to use AI, at least have the courage of your convictions and say, this is AI driven. Where I get offended at it as a publisher or even as an artist is when somebody takes it and they say, I drew this, I created this. And even though they're admitting it's AI, the new term it just really, sorry for anyone who does it, go ahead and hate on me. It's Don's opinion only here. But really annoys the shit out of me when someone says, I'm an artist, I drew that via AI. And my argument is, no, you're not.
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're good at creating prompts to make it look good. I mean, what's people's opinion then?
Yeah. I don't disagree.
No, differing opinion. By all means, you're not going to offend us at all here. I mean, if you say you're full of shit, Don, I take it. I mean, that's what this is for, the show.
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from, and I definitely don't fully disagree with that. I think there is something to be said about the original meaning of the word art, and from an etymological perspective, means skill or talent or the ability to do something. So you could say that you're an AI prompt artist, just like a Subway sandwich maker can be a sandwich artist.
Yeah.
Right?
But are you going to pay $300 for that sandwich?
Right.
No. You might pay $300 for a piece of art.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, like how much skill did it actually take to make that program? Well, in some of them, it probably did take quite a bit of skill. And there is processes in place, or are processes, got to use right grammar here. There are processes in place with Stable Diffusion where you're able to select specific portions of the image, reprompt how that part of the image is supposed to look, and there's a significant modification that you can do with Stable Diffusion.
You can actually go in and say, like, yes, I like the overall body as a figure. I like the body, but I don't like how the face.
But I don't like the background. Change the background. Wow. You can get that granular with Stable Diffusion. Now, certain systems like Midjourney, which is based on like Discord, they're a little more limited by their interface and how you're interfacing with Stable Diffusion.
Mm-hmm.
But with Stable Diffusion, vanilla, we'll say, so the base core system, you do actually have a significant amount of editorial control over the image. And it takes significantly more, we'll say, skill. I won't say talent, but it definitely takes more skill in dealing with the program than you would otherwise, imagine there being the case. It still takes more skill to throw it into Photoshop and actually make it look good afterward, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, acknowledge that's going to change here soon, anyways. It's just going to get that good.
Yeah. Well, there's stuff that you learn from doing art that you're not. I don't think you're going to learn from just throwing prompts in a computer and wash, rinse, repeat. There's just little things that as you talk with other artists or you take a class or read a book and you are pursuing the craft and you're pursuing the skill, you begin to learn these things and it's like, oh, and at some point, enough of those things are learned, you hit a new plateau in skill, and so you move on and you move up. And I don't see that happening in with AI and people claiming they're an AI prompt artist or whatever they want to claim. It's just not going to happen. There's just things about anatomy, about biology, the real world, about nature.
Where that actual effect is actually happening is in how they've learned how to make a prompt to get exactly what they want.
Yeah.
It's not happening in the creation of the image itself.
Their wordsmithing is what they're doing.
They're wordsmiths at best, right?
I would grant you that. I would grant you that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen people who have been extraordinarily descriptive with their prompts, who have been able to, we'll say, with words, are able to skillfully outdo other people who are prompting to create images. Yeah. Okay, fine, right? But yeah, when it comes to the actual aesthetic output that is generated, yeah, I would agree with you guys. That's not an image they created. that was an image they told a system to create. And by definition, because they didn't actually create that image themselves, for the most part, I would say that, it shouldn't be copyrightable according to copyright law in the US, because it has to be human created.
Well, see, that's the thing. And they're actually already addressing this.
Yeah.
They're starting to touch the edges of this because I believe right now, as it stands, you cannot copyright. I think the way it's worded, and this is, again, it's really oblique. Of course, they don't want to, they're leaving it for interpretation. But I think they're not down to percentages yet. But they're basically saying that if it's largely written via AI, it's not copyrightable.
Right. And so there's when we talk about images versus text too, we're in an entirely different world.
That's another thing I want to kind of start get into a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about text and AI, because that's another thing that people, Steve, who is one of the co-hosts on this show now, he's new, is a prolific author. I've known Steve for almost 20 years. And AI, AI, and I write. I have several books published, and I'll tell you something. It's hard writing a book. It's hard putting things into a cohesive, understandable thing. And it's kind of offensive for people to come in behind you and say, I wrote this book. And then you see advertisements, write a 60,000 short page story in 5 minutes. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, really? Is that possible? I mean, is it possible?
I mean, it's all, and it's garbage too.
Yeah. The humanity's pulled out of it, that core creativity.
Yeah, I would agree. If AI is going to do anything truly profound in the next few decades, it's going to prove that there is a such thing as a human soul, in my opinion.
Can we quote you? That's an interesting prediction.
The thing is, it sounds snarky, but it's not. It is. I'd like to hear from the audience, because we have a lot of people now in watching this. I would be really interested to get people's opinion in chat. I mean, are you pro AI? Are you anti AI? Are you on the fence? I mean, what are your thoughts and everything? Because, again, we'll go right back to, and I use my friend Jim Wampler as a good example, because Jim is a true artist to the artist. I mean, he literally will show his rough drawing of the thing before he does it. And he's done stuff for me, and he'll show the process behind it. And it's obvious he's working hard for it. And I just think that someone who comes in and just types in, draw a 3-headed monster with green eyes shooting flames out of its nose, and then go, look what I created. Isn't my art wonderful? Yeah. And it's like, no, that's nice what the computer created. Beautiful what the computer created. And real quick, Scott Mulder, by the way, disclaimer, Scott Mulder is doing art for me currently right now, and that man is an artist himself. This guy can draw. Excellent artist. He says hot garbage is the term I'm using a lot these days.
It's fair.
Amen.
I mean, and so for full disclosure, seems how we're doing those. I do all my own artwork too. So
yes, you do.
So I am Scientist, the artist. This is my logo. So
yeah, and Tom and Eric Tenkar will tell you, we just did a RPG game called Blades and Arcana. I did all the pencil art in it. That's my pencil art. It's hanging down in my wife's sewing room.
I like it.
Thank you.
Good.
And I just think that, and again, whether you like my art, whether you hate it, I respect it both ways.
Yeah.
But what I have a hard time, and again, it's arrogant sounding, but the artist in me just goes, come on, guys. I mean, at least have the balls to say I used AI, and far too many people are not even admitting it. And that's where I had the problem with it.
Yeah.
Use AI. Be a publisher, use AI. I can't judge you. I don't know what your finances are.
Sure.
I don't know what your situation is. Some people aren't connected and know an artist or whatnot. I respect that. But have, like my dad used to say, my grandpa, son, have the courage of your convictions, and at least admit you do it.
Yeah. So I would argue there's a sense of honor there that is lost in general in our society, and that is why this sort of thing is able to prolific the way that it has, in the manner that it has, right?
Yep.
Really quick, when it comes to text AI,
yeah, let's get into that a little bit,
and let's talk about OpenAI just for a second.
Sure.
In general, OpenAI is interesting to me because it's almost as if OpenAI actually predicted the potentiality for some lawsuits. I can't imagine what. But they actually did some things in the gathering of their data corpus, their initial data set that was probably a really good idea. So they didn't just like scrape the internet for their information, for instance. They actually went to various institutions. So, and I've got some notes here. They went to the UCI machine learning repository. They went to government data portals.
Real quick, what is the UCI data set repository? What is that?
Basically, it's a repository put up by universities
of
information, just data
of stuff that you can use. That
you can use explicitly for this purpose.
Okay, and it's legal stuff. It's not stolen or nothing like that.
Right. So at least I would hope so, because technically the universities would be the ones liable. So I not knowing all the details of how they went about, getting that permission and using that, I can't necessarily speak to that directly. But so they went to let's see, lost my spot here. But yeah, so Kaggle is something to look up, as well as UCI machine learning repository, if you guys want to learn more information about them. So when it comes to the web scraping aspect, there was some things that OpenAI did do some web scraping techniques for, but specifically they went out of their way to follow all current written laws on the subject. Now, I'm not 100% sure what that fully means, but that is what OpenAI advertises. Okay. So unless someone blows the whistle saying that they did otherwise, that's what we have to go with. So and then of course they actually got into a number of data partnerships with various organizations.
Yeah.
So one thing that OpenAI has done with that data corpus is they took this 45 terabyte size database, which is not small, we'll say.
No, it's not small.
But it's also not like as big as I thought it was going to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And they pared it down to 570 gigs of useful data.
Oh, really? So they took that many terabytes down to that. And by the way, it sounds like it is a lot, but comparison-wise, it's actually quite small. Wow.
Yeah, so they went from 45 terabytes to half a terabyte, basically.
Yeah.
So that's what they're using. But the thing is like 1 terabyte is, to give you an idea of for the audience here, like what 1 terabyte actually is. 1 terabyte would be roughly like 130,000 books of about 70 or 700 pages.
Yeah.
Or it would be roughly 500 hours of high definition video.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about half that. So maybe roughly 250 hours of high definition video. I mean, that's a lot of movies, don't get me wrong, but in reality, it's really not that big when we're talking about sizes of databases, right? In fact, the standard computer these days on the market is going to have probably a 1 terabyte size hard drive or bigger.
Yeah.
Sometimes even like up to 5 teras. So
2 terabyte right there.
There you go. Yeah, and it fits in the palm of your hand. Man, that is a far cry from even 15 years ago.
Yep. Well, remember back in the day when the 20 megabyte hard drive.
You know
what? $2,000.
Don, and Tom, I'm going to apologize now when I say that was before I was born. Maybe not technically before I was born. I was only a few years old though, so I'm just.
I remember the Commodore 64 when my friend down the alleyway got one.
Yeah.
We go over there, play text-based games on this Commodore 64.
Yeah. So one of my mentors in my early career, and I've already disclosed in previous forums that I'm ex-military. So one of my former NCOICs, he actually would love to regale us on the various systems that they would use, and the differences in sizes that those hard drives were.
Oh yeah.
And he's talking about how they had these big, massive record player-looking hard disk drives, and
yeah,
and
those
all of us
you said
young airmen would be like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe the Air Force's nuclear missile division still has 8-inch floppy disks.
Yes.
8-inch floppy disks that they.
Man, the Navy up to a few years ago was still using CRT monitors because the LCDs weren't approved yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just technology, you know. I mean, it grows, and I think that's the problem. Is sometimes technology takes a really slow pace to grow, and then you got other times it just is like a fire hose in the mouth, and that's what AI is. AI has come, and I'm not joking. I mean, I can tell you, at least on my standpoint, AI was not really even in my lexicon of known words really 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it just seemed like all of a sudden it's everywhere and everybody's talking about it and everybody's using it. And now, and just for full disclosure, I went into Bain AI before this show. I want to do a little research. Now I was curious. It's scary how good that is getting.
Sure. You should see Grok. Grok is a lot better in my opinion. If you've got a Twitter account and if you're paying the base monthly fee, you have access to Grok.
Is that X's of AI?
Yeah. Sorry, okay. I said Twitter, didn't I?
Yeah. No. I always go to twitter.com anyways when I go to X, but that is Musk's AI that he is trying to get the other AI company bought out. It's called Grok.
Grok. Yeah. Grok. Grok.
You've not been on Twitter recently.
I haven't been on Twitter in a long time.
Grok is curated on a data set that was designed, we'll say, to try to be as factually accurate as possible. Okay, so I mean, people love
Explain. What do you mean? Factually accurate.
So when you just grab random information, random data sets from the internet, for instance, and you just say scrape random websites, you are ingesting into your data corpus everything that is both truthful and false. Everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So that becomes part of the innate portion of the data corpus. Now, what happens with the data corpus with textual AI is it takes words, accurate here on the camera, it takes words and it does something called tokenization. So what it does is it assigns like an ID token with a tagged based context to the word. And depending on the version of the AI that it's using, is it may not even do like one word or the whole word. What it might actually do is do tokenization for the word, but also do tokenization for parts of the word. And there's a number of different methodologies you can use to do that tokenization. Like you can break it down by, say, linguistic morphemes, for instance. That seems to be a logical way to go, and some systems do that or have done that. Other systems don't even bother, and they tokenize 2-letter increments.
No, real quick, just make sure something. Thaddeus, because this is actually interesting to me. Are you going to TotalCon this weekend?
No. So okay. I wish I was going to conventions this year, but
all right.
my day job basically won't allow for it time wise.
Okay, because the reason I was asking is I know that Tom and his wife are coming up on Sunday, and I was hoping to be able to meet because I'd really like to kind of like show you a couple things that I found on the computer that I don't have time to show here, and it is so interesting to me about AI and okay, I just say it like this. I went into AI and I decided that I wanted to steal other people's work in AI. I wanted to see how I could do it. So what I did was, of all things, is I picked on Larry Elmore.
Okay.
And I went to Bing. I went to Bing. I went to this. I'm trying to think the name. Midjourney.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing prompts like real basic, like Red Dragon, Jeff Easley style, Red Dragon, Larry Elmore style. And it would give like just wonky stuff.
Yeah.
But when I started getting more descriptive,
it
is scary how close I got it. And I guess the argument I want to bring to you, Theudas, is this. There's a big argument online right now that defends it by going, well, no, it doesn't steal people's work. Then how can it know what Larry Elmore's work looks like if it's not referencing Larry Elmore's work or Jeff Easley's? What's your opinion on that?
My opinion is that Midjourney is kind of in trouble.
But I think they're in trouble for a unique way because they had their mole come out and literally go, here's the list. This is the email that they sent all of us and said, scrape out these people.
Well, even just beyond that, they obviously overfixed or over-referenced those probably that exact same list, to be honest. Because if I say I want a Red Dragon in the Larry Elmore style in a matte painting finish with half naked barbarian. Oh, you can't use the word naked in Midjourney, but like an unclothed barbarian, a warrior wielding a sword or something. Like you can get something looks pretty close to Conan the Barbarian automatically.
But that's the whole point. This is the scary part about it is you can get that descriptive. You're not joking.
The question then becomes from a certain perspective is it the same image of any of the individuals that are referenced? So and then what degree of similarity constitutes theft? So that's why a lot of the lawsuits are not going after the images that are generated themselves, but after the way they gathered the data set.
Right. And that's the thing is that if you're an artist, you deserve to profit from your own work, your own labor. And if they're just taking your labor and using it, that's unethical.
But is it unethical, Tom? Because people do that, and this is I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Because the big argument to that argument is with you, Tom, is well, people do it all the time anyways, because if I do a Red Dragon with a barbarian standing in front of it with his sword drawn and a shield, am I emulating Larry Elmore's classic cover? Or am I making something truly original? Because
one of the things you see from artists is you'll go into a museum and you'll be going through the galleries and there'll be benches and you'll see an artist there with their pad of paper and they're sketching.
Yeah.
And they're making it, they're looking at the picture and making their own copy of it.
But it's not ultimate.
Right. Because I do my lines one way and that artist did theirs a different way, so I might, they might make really tiny little.
So here's the secret about Midjourney. They have something called a house style. And that is a specific set of algorithms on the back end of your prompt that get added to your prompt that adds something unique according to Midjourney and what their house style is to that picture. you can actually, for the most part, at least for the longest time, I haven't looked at it lately. I haven't, played around with it because I'm not willing to pay for it. In the last like 6 months, to 8 months, you used to be able to tell what specifically was a mid-journey generated design if you knew what you were looking for. So you could kind of tell what that house style was. And that's what the AI detectors are trying to look for as well, is the house style of that system, as well as I think some remnants of the noise factor that we talked about at the beginning.
But it's easy to go ahead and anyways, I mean, you can encode markers on an image.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I guess
human eye wouldn't see it.
Yeah, but I guess on the same token as if you have the right software, you can remove those markers.
Also true. Photoshop can do it. Photoshop can easily do it.
Yes, Photoshop, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Photoshop has some functions that allow you to break down those elements into various layers, and then you just remove those layers.
Yep.
Which is why I hesitate to post even my own artwork on Facebook to a closed group of friends with a watermark on it, because I'm thinking to myself, is someone going to take this at some point? And I don't know, maybe I'm being paranoid, but maybe I'm not,
So that watermark feature on, say, DeviantArt is just useless.
Oh, I could remove a watermark off an image easy.
Yeah, it's not a foolproof way of preventing theft.
Yeah.
Just from somebody who doesn't know how to do it.
For the average person trying to protect their artwork, it's a good basic way to, no matter what, if the person you have on the other end that's being devious, if they want to act in an unscrupulous manner and they want to take your image, they're going to do it. I mean, it's like anything. If people want to steal from you, they're going to steal from you, and people are creative. But
locks just keep honest people honest.
Yeah. Good fences make good neighbors.
Yes,
but it won't keep out a burglar.
Exactly. So let me throw this at you. In a perfect world, you run it all. You're the boss. What do you think are some of the best way? Okay, let me back up. Rephrase this. What are some suggestions that you would make to the artist out there who says, you know what, I know I can't be 100% protecting my work, and we're going to talk about two different ways. But as an image generator, an artist, not a writer, an artist, what are some good ways that I can protect my work? Not foolproof, but what are some good, average, fairly easy ways to do it that are protected from most people?
Honestly, keep the audience small. And if you want to make your art available so that people can see it, put it on a system that requires a login first off. Okay, so put it behind a login. Beyond that, if you're putting it on the internet, it lives on the internet.
Yeah,
that's just how it is. If I was king for a day and could make some legal changes to how a lot of that stuff works, I would definitely put in some more explicit language as to how data scraping is allowed to be done on the internet in the United States.
But I'm talking about just the Don Samora has drawn an image, and I'm going to put it on Facebook. I'm going to put it on my website for publishing. What are some things that Don can do maybe to mitigate the theft of my image? I mean, it's just maybe a watermark, maybe just the most basic way of doing it.
It's one of the more basic things you could do, but you could also provide a lower quality resolution image.
That's what I do.
Final product.
Yeah, pixel. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it's a lower resolution in general, it's less likely to get stolen, and if it is, maybe it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, I tend to make my images smaller, increase the blur, and lower pixel count. Tom?
Now, well, let me just ask then, since we're on this topic, I have a professional artist friend who's actually colorizing an image that I drew. He fixed a few little nagging issues I had with my sketch, and now he's colorizing it so that we can use it in the fan magazine. One of the things he does is that he uses Nightshade. Have you heard of Nightshade?
I have heard of Nightshade.
What's your opinion of Nightshade?
So measures and countermeasures. When it first came out, it was probably fairly effective. These days, I can almost guarantee it's not.
Okay, because it operates real slow on my computer.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Well, and the longer something is out, the more chance people have to go around it and figure ways to get around it.
So, Nightshade was the equivalent of like steel breastplates.
Yeah.
And now they have gunpowder.
Right. Now that's actually probably an apt analogy, because steel breastplates and gunpowder muskets and blunderbusses and that sort of thing existed for, I think it was like 200 years at the same time. They coexisted. It was a long time. And don't quote me on that number, but it was a long time. And the cuirass steel breastplate actually did a really good job, depending on who your manufacturer was, at deflecting a number of those bullets. In fact, you did not want to buy one of those breastplates unless you saw the bullet dent in it.
From testing it.
Because it was tested. And that particular piece of armor was placed over another breastplate. So you had 2 layers of protection usually. And it was often angled in such a way to where it would deflect off.
Nice.
Yeah, sorry. I got a lot of
No, you're fine. No, this is exactly what we want. We sometimes go off on little side tangents, but that's a good analogy.
Well, I have one more for you, Thyatis. The British Enfield musket that was used in the American Civil War had a 200-year history of being used by organized military organizations as well, which is just odd, but it's because it was so damn accurate and low maintenance.
Yeah.
So,
but I think we could be looking at a situation when it comes to AI companies, we'll say, where they are going to remain effective for quite a while in technological terms.
Yeah.
So OpenAI and their text generation services, I think they're definitely going to survive the onslaught of various lawsuits, regardless of how people feel about the way these companies have gathered their data. I think they're definitely one of the ones that are going to survive. And the reason why I say that is because they offer specific services to companies now, to enterprise level companies, where the company gives them a copy of all their documentation that they have for their services and products, etc. And then OpenAI takes their training or their system and trains it off of that data corpus.
Okay, real quick. Again, don't mean to interrupt, but clarification here. You're using a term that I hear a lot. They use it to train.
Yes.
Okay, what do you mean by that when you say they used information to train the AI?
So this comes down to the concept of what I can't remember the full name of it. It's a neural. Oh man, I forgot the notes here. They call it a neural network. I hate it. I hate that term, because to me it implies that it's something far better than what it actually is. So I'm gonna have to back up a little bit to explain what I mean.
No, go ahead. Yep.
So first off, you know what a logic tree or a flow chart is, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So imagine a logic tree or flowchart existing side by side hundreds of thousands of other logic trees and flowcharts. But now imagine that each and every single one of those logic trees and flowcharts has an entry point at any point in the logic tree or flowchart.
Okay.
Now imagine that they're all interconnected.
And you start connecting them, and they start pulling from each other. And
right. So AI, if in order to get what we want out of AI, we have to have this extraordinarily high complexity of what they're calling like a neural network. Okay, which again, I hate the term because to me it's still not even remotely that complex.
Yeah.
They have to have it to where. Oh, sorry, 1 second. I got someone at my door.
Oh, you're fine. No, if we got to have the technical.
I got like 9 kids, so
well, the technical experts are coming in now, so let's get this.
All right. So, anyways, so
hold on, stop. Did you just say 9 kids?
Yeah, I got 9.
Sir, I gotta salute you. Holy cow! I thought I had 4, and I thought I was doing something. Whew.
Yeah, it's a lot, but that's a whole other conversation. Anyways, so these neural networks, in order to get AI to do what we want to do, which is something called emergent behavior, that is behavior we did not inherently program the system to do, is it has to have a lot of these interconnected nodes, we'll say, or tokens. That way, it can go through on a path on these various, we'll call them logic trees for the sake of layman's here.
Yeah.
So it can come in and go various different directions based on how each of the tokens are weighted based off of the original prompt that was given and a random seed. Okay, so there's a random number that's attached to the prompt that is then filtered through the neural network.
So various prompts, though, can be given different weights of importance then?
Yes.
Okay.
And not just the prompt itself, but each word.
Word, yes.
Yeah.
So generally, which words get the more heavy weight? Those in the beginning, or no?
Or it could be anything, right?
You can actually usually define that in the prompt. That's how complex these systems are.
All right.
So you can emphasize based off of the context of the prompt itself, or based off of the data set that you're using and you're telling the system to emphasize, like a company's documentation. You can emphasize that documentation or give it extra weight at the beginning.
Got you.
And then have the system generate whatever it is you're looking to generate based off the prompt.
Okay.
It's so where was I going with that? So yeah, mad ADD.
No, you're fine. We're this is actually quite interesting, and I mean,
yeah. Hey Scott, that's a good comment there. Your employer is largely working to replace your function. I am sorry to hear that. I often look at the value of AI as an automation tool and a tool that allows us to reduce costs in general. But there is a human cost to that.
Yeah.
Always. And it doesn't matter what the industry is. It doesn't matter what the technology is that comes in to do this. There's always a human cost.
Yeah.
And
sadly.
And you have to so I'm young enough at the moment, at least, to where, and I've grown up in a specific day and age to where I'm looking at these situations as they're coming at us, and they're coming in waves, and they're getting faster and more, and the interview fold between these waves are getting smaller and smaller, right? As a worker. And I'm like, I need to be able to be agile enough with my own skill functions to be able to retool on a moment's notice and learn new skills every day. And it's paid off for me, but that doesn't mean it's going to pay off for everyone in the same way. And so I can empathize with people who are caught in that destruction.
I'll share a story with you concerning computers, and this comes from my father, who was drafted during the 60s, during that little thing going over East Asia. Did his tour as a Air Force medic in Spokane, a base near Spokane, Washington. Got out, came back to his company, and they were like, they called him down to the personnel office, and they said, they handed him a check. They treated him being drafted as he was still an employee, and they handed him a check for all the bonuses and raises that he missed out on.
Yeah.
And he promptly quit and took that check and went to school to learn computer programming, which at the time in the 60s was key punch cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he came up to Maine, got married, met my mother, and was working at the Bates Mill. It was several hundred employees.
Yeah.
And what would happen is his job was to just enter data, and he would put in, 40 hours a week entering data so they could print paychecks.
Yep.
Now,
but see, that's the interesting thing about it, though. I mean, so
what would happen?
Just the data being entered, though.
I know, but what would happen is the computer here in Lewiston, Maine, would go down. So they would send him down to Hartford, Connecticut, to a sister company, and he would go in at night and use their computer. And that computer went down one time, and so then he was going into a bank at night after the bank closed to use their computer, and that computer went down, and he flies back up to Maine, and he walks into the office, and his boss is like, "You didn't do anything all week."
Well,
he's giving him.
But that's the thing about AI, though. I mean, but that's the whole thing about AI is that, even if it's accurate, what you're doing is you're allowing people to do massive amounts of work and doing it very quickly on the fly. And then the risk becomes people trust it so much, then they begin to let their guards down.
Yeah.
And now you're not sure if the information you're getting is accurate. And there is the issue with the whole written AI combined with the art. Is that really coming from the person's hand, their knowledge, their skill, or is it just computer generating it? So,
well, let me ask Thaddeus this. One of the other teachers at the middle school was talking to, she's kind of become an expert on AI there, and was teaching a class last summer up at the University of Maine. And so she was explaining to me what she was doing with the ChatGPT chatbots. Like if you pay for the higher membership, you have access. You can use you can program a chatbot. She was saying, I've programmed this one chatbot to do curriculum for me in science. I've programmed this one chatbot. It picks out what I'm going to wear. It's my personal assistant. And so she was telling me all these things that you can do. I'm like, whoa, this is mind blowing. And I thought, like, I could take one of these chatbots and begin to train it on Star Frontier's stuff and have it do a character generation. So, but the problem,
not just that, Tom, but you can also if you like Traveler, I think it is. I think Bat in the Attic Games has a character generator for Traveler. Might want to.
Did Rob make one?
Yeah, he did.
I did not know Rob did that. Rob Conley's holding out.
But you can have ChatGPT use his generator.
Okay.
It can go online and do that.
Yeah, but I want Star Frontiers.
I know.
And here's
as an example.
Well, here's the problem I had is that because ChatGPT has stuff in its training data that I would say is D20 based, probably D20 modern, D20 future kind of crap in there. And so I would be training it. I'm teaching it the rules for Star Frontiers, and then I'd say, all right, create me and then it would just default to that D20 crap.
Yeah. But then, it's defaulting to what it knows, and that's the big problem.
So, having worked with ChatGPT in regards to mostly editing and data organization, which is how I mostly use it, Every once in a while, it does try to sneak in like a D&D specific term, like literally like WotC owned Dungeons and Dragons. Like I almost to the point where I almost feel like it's advertising for them.
And that's another thing that you run risk of companies monetizing this type of stuff, where they do that, where you're being force fed information that you don't know you're being force fed.
I'm so much more afraid of that with AI than I am literally anything else.
Yeah,
because to me, if you're gonna have AI at all, it needs to be democratized in a very in the most ethical way possible and in the most profound ways possible. Okay, it should be available for everyone to use because everyone needs to be on an even playing field.
Yeah.
Dare I say, for those who are say 2A, aficionados or defenders who who prefer their Second Amendment rights. I would even go so far as to mandate, like George Washington did, that everyone should have AI. If you catch my meaning.
Yeah.
So, because at that point, if everyone has it and everyone is using it, then the potentiality for large companies to beat us over the head with it becomes significantly less. That's actually what I'm afraid of here, is that we'll end up with two sets of I won't necessarily say laws, but we'll say interpretations of laws
that that's been done before.
Yeah, that's I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about here. I don't want to end up in a situation where the layman is completely just bent over for not having access to that type of tooling in the next 10 to 20 years versus say big companies. And so did you know that when Disney created what was it, Secret Invasion or Secret Wars or whatever, anyways, the Disney Plus series with Samuel L. Jackson in it, a lot of the beginning portion of that series was AI art. And
I didn't know that.
And they got away with it. You're going to see companies like WotC, who are embracing AI significantly.
Oh yeah,
right. They're gonna get away with it because they have the money for the lawyers.
Well, think about this with WotC. Okay, think about Magic. Let's just throw Magic the Gathering. On average, a release of Magic the Gathering needs easily a couple hundred pieces of art.
Easily.
Can you imagine not having to worry about paying artists? That you can you could have a couple people in a week generate high quality, good stuff for an entire new release of Magic.
Yeah, I mean that's assuming that the artists you're not already getting aren't literally stealing from other artists already.
Well, we're not talking about the ethics of it because we're talking about WotC here. Okay,
sure.
We're talking about just the general theory behind that. But I guess at the end of the day here, I mean, AI is here to stay.
Yeah.
And I think what we really need is, at least on the game publishing end of it with writing and art, is, and I don't see it happening anytime soon, but I just think that what we really need is a clear set of rules and guidelines that people follow, or laws, if you will, that pertain to it. And it's kind of still a wild, wild west out there.
Yeah.
It's gonna cycle through the courts like you talked about earlier, Thaddeus.
Well, before we close out, I have two questions.
Okay.
First is, do you think we'll ever see AI written book on the New York Times bestseller list?
I think so. Okay. Yes. Down the line.
Considering the current owners of the New York Times and the people in their editorial staff, definitely not anytime soon. But honestly, probably at some point in the next few decades.
Okay, good answer. you made a good prediction earlier about what AI was going to reveal concerning the fact of the human soul earlier, and I said good prediction. Do you have a prediction on when Skynet's going active?
All right, so
or something there similar.
It depends on. Honestly, I don't think it's going to be Skynet. I think you're much more likely to have systems like Elon Musk's Neuralink, turning people into Skynet.
Well,
have you guys
heard
of a
even scarier?
What's that?
Have you heard of a sci-fi concept called singularity?
Yes.
Yes.
It's that convergence of man and machine.
Yep.
Okay, and at what point that happens in our future, we don't know, but it's gonna happen. And Neuralink is like step one in that process, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Or I mean, maybe you could argue that some of the more advanced prosthetics might have been. I don't know, whatever. But once that happens, if depending on the safeguards that are in place and the actual ability to affect the brain, those devices actually have, I think we're much more likely to see effectively more of a science fiction zombie than we are. Say Skynet specifically. Otherwise, that fear of mine aside, if we're just talking about AI as a technology, if we were to have anything like Skynet go into place, it'll probably not be because it was put into place as a network on purpose for some altruistic purpose. It would likely be because it was put in to do exactly what Skynet did.
Yeah.
As a virus.
Very purposeful.
Yes.
So
when I mentioned earlier that if we decide not to use AI, that other people will, I mean that very literally. Someone in the chat earlier mentioned DeepSeek. So the Chinese DeepSeek AI seems to do all the things that OpenAI ChatGPT is able to do really well, maybe even slightly better in some cases, slightly worse in others.
Yeah.
Well, and they did it for only like $5 million of investment, which seems like just ridiculous, right? How did they do that? Well, they did that by using OpenAI. They basically stole OpenAI's concept and structure and everything else. And now as a result, they have something that is just as good, maybe even slightly better, depending on the subject. When you can do that for very little investment by nation states and foreign actors that are notorious for their cyber warfare, if you get Skynet, it'll be because of that.
Well, you know what? I hate to end it at that positive note, folks, but it's been on here now almost an hour and a half. It's been a great chat, Thyatis. Seriously.
Thank you, Thyatis.
Honestly, one of the good ones here, the shows that we've had. And, we appreciate you taking your time out. I would really like to revisit this subject, maybe 6 months down the line and see, what has come, what is not. Because I think, this is one of those things where, the technology is evolving so fast. It used to be we talked decades. Now I think we talk months. So, again, Thaddeus, thank you very much. Much appreciated you coming on here and talking to us. And I'm sorry. Take my hat off to you. Nine of them.
Yeah, we got number 10 on the way. So.
Oh really?
Geez.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I guess we are talking decades here now, aren't we? Hit the Big Ten. So, again, Thyatis, thank you very much for coming on. Eric could not make it. Eric has the audacity to choose playing Dungeons and Dragons over coming on the show.
How dare he?
We'll deal with him this weekend at TotalCon. But again, everybody in chat, thank you very much. Scott, John Peck,
Scott.
Flint, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. We are going to be at TotalCon this weekend. We are still going to be doing a Thursday night, I believe, live on Thursday. We're going to have to figure it out some way. The nice thing about technology is everybody can kind of tune in and do. So look for that. Other than that, we'll be doing, I know Eric is going to be doing a series of lives throughout TotalCon. I'm going to be on there doing lives. I imagine, Tom, you'll pop on for Tabletop Tap Room and do a couple maybe on your day that you're there.
No, I'm coming down on Sunday. I think the con's basically over then.
Yeah, you can still talk to people and chat and do. I mean, what the hell? Why not? Have fun.
Well, I'll show up in your lives and.
Yeah, why not? So,
poke the bear
again,
if I can.
Yeah. So again, everybody, thank you for tuning in. This is Don from the Vlog of Many Things. Tom, Thaddeus, thank you very much. Everybody else, have a good weekend. Have a safe week, and stay warm. It's -12 right now here in Michigan. So, this